yoga so that we can make sure that we get the most out of our practice and that we can make sure that we keep our body healthy while we're doing the practice. Just to introduce myself, my name is Melissa Wattups, and I have been practicing yoga for about 4 years. And let me get everything situated here. I've been practicing yoga for about 4 years, and prior to that, I was an exercise addict, and I really did a lot of things that were pretty rough on my body. And we're going to be admitting people here this morning quite a bit. So anyway, I was pretty rough on my body and used my body to the fullest extent. And consequently, I've ended up with some real knee issues, back issues, neck issues, and just issues from not being kind with my practice. I've always felt like more is more, when really less, if you're doing it correctly, is more for your body. Yoga has spoken to me in a way that other exercises have not, and I have loved that. And initially, when I started yoga, it was mostly for exercise. I really wanted to stay in shape and stay fit. And after about a year, maybe close to 2 years of practice, it became so much more to me, and it became a real connection between my mind, my body, my soul, my spirit. And I love that. I love being able to get all of the physical movements into my body and keep myself fit, but also tune into just some peace that I hadn't had before that. So I want to talk a little bit about safety. When you're practicing yoga, there should never be a point of pain. You should work to an edge, to a place where you can feel discomfort or you can feel work, but you should never feel pain. And if there's any move, any motion that you feel pain, back off. And I can also connect with you after class, before class, and help you through some alternatives for a pose if something's causing you issues. Another difficult thing for me, and I think for most people who have participated in exercise, is keeping your ego out of your practice. And just because you can do 27 push-ups, maybe that's not what your body needs. And yoga is an opportunity to really check into what your body needs and what will benefit your body and soul and not your ego. That's something that I continue to work on, is keeping my ego out of my practice. Some more safety tips for you is we always want to protect the spine and be careful with the spine. We want to make sure that we're extending our spine tall and growing each vertebrae, separating them apart before we go into any folding, twisting, bending movements. And I will always cue that lengthen the spine before you go. So if you're going to go into a twist, you want to make sure you're extending tall before you come into the twist. Never doing two movements with your spine at the same time. If you're ever in doubt about something, and if it's feeling awkward, uncomfortable, or it's just not feeling right, just stop and pause and look. It's difficult when I'm not in a live class to be able to do hands-on assist and to be able to help you, but we can do that after. So if something's feeling off or not right, then I would suggest that you just pause and give yourself a break, maybe watch a little bit more closely to see what we're doing. And then just keep your practice gentle. When we've got this mentality where we're working harder, faster, stronger, and everything is so intense with our physical fitness, yoga kind of brings the opposite of that. And I will try to cue throughout the practice to keep your body soft, relaxed, and gentle. And I'll always cue into your forehead. Is your brow furrowed when you're doing this pose? Or is your jaw clenched? Or are your shoulders tight? And I'll try to remind you to keep your body soft and gentle before we go into poses or into a flow where we're connecting several poses at a time. I also want to show you a couple of tools that may help some beginners with class. And these are pretty standard blocks. I get them at TJ Maxx for, I don't know, less than $10 for both of them. And they are a really good support. So if we're in a forward fold and your body is not as flexible as you're learning yoga, as you're coming into it, you can use the blocks so that you're still getting the forward fold movement, but you're not having to hang here unsupported. It really helps to support. Or even if you're in a lunge pose and it's difficult to get your hands down, you can hold this up. So I will be doing that. You might want to purchase those. You can do it without blocks, but blocks may be helpful. We'll also do balance poses near a wall so that you can use wall for guidance if we're standing in a balance pose unsupported. And sometimes just being near the wall will help you to be able to have a sense of balance. And I'll show you a few other tools that you may be interested in purchasing before you start a real regular practice, but they're not necessary. Really, all you need is a soft place to practice, a mat, a towel, a rug, carpet, and clothes that will allow you to have some flexibility. I also like to have water near me, so I take a water break 2 or 3 times during class, and then you can just modify that as you want to modify that. We're going to start learning just basic poses, structure of the pose, and then we'll learn how to add those poses together in a flow. So starting, I just want to stand in our standing balance pose or our mountain pose. So what that looks like is our feet are hip distance apart, and we're finding balance. And you're welcome to do this with me. So we want to check our balance on our heels, the balls of our feet, and our toes. And when we are creating a base for our body, let's try and spread our toes out so that we create a wider foundation. And you can just move back and forth until you find that stability between the balls of your feet, the toes, and the heels. And we'll just stand here. And then I'll have you pay attention to a few areas of your body as we make sure we're perfecting this pose. Take your spine and imagine each vertebrae raising, increasing space between each vertebrae. So you're lengthening your spine straight up. Sometimes it's easier to do that with an inhale, but that helps to ensure that we're not slumping or that we're not out of alignment. So just keep that spine tall. And also you'll notice with a neutral spine, a lot of times we have a tendency of coming forward when we're standing, our shoulders are down, or we have a tendency of hyperextending. My legs will go back quite a ways, and then I end up having some hyperextension in my knees, in my back, and we want to work on a neutral spine. So each of you right now, find that notch on the front of your hip. You should feel where the bone protrudes the most, and then bring your hand around to the back side of the hip, and you should be able to feel a little notch in the back of the hip. And what we want to ensure a neutral spine is that these two notches are level. So I'm going to have to, instead of hiking my behind out like I usually do where it feels comfortable, I push my pelvis forward to find that neutral spine. So you should be able to see that the top of the front of my hip and the notch in the back of my hip are parallel to the floor. The other thing that we can do, and if you have an empty wall behind you, come and stand next to that wall, put your heels to the back of the wall, your shoulder blades to the back of the wall, and your butt to the back of the wall, and you should be able to put your hands in that space behind your back. So your back, your spine has a natural curve. From the head, the neck comes in, the upper body thoracic comes out, And then towards the bottom of our spine, it naturally comes in and then around to our behind. So I'm going to try and show you that space behind there. So when we're standing in a balanced pose, we've got the indent, the out, and then it comes around to the inside. So this is our neutral spine that we want to come to every time we're in a standing pose. And there will be a lot of standing poses that we'll introduce. So mountain pose is a standing pose. Our hands are gently placed to the side. Our chest is open. Our spine is extended tall. We have that space in the back of our spine, our low spine, and the notches in our hip are balanced. We also have our weight balanced between our heel and the front of our foot. So it actually will take some work to get you into your mountain pose. And we're going to just stand here for a moment and start working a little bit on balance in a correct mountain pose. And let's try and close our eyes if you feel comfortable with your eyes closed. And the goal of your practice would be able to have your eyes closed the entire practice. And what that does is it draws you inside. So you're not distracted externally. You're really feeling what your body is needing, wanting, and able to do from the inside. So let's start focusing a little bit on the breathing. And I like to say that yoga is a breathing class with a side of movement. The breath is the most important part of our breathing. So we're going to inhale through our nose. Again, we're standing in our correct mountain pose posture, inhaling through the nose, long and slow, exhaling through the nose. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the nose. And if you're paying attention to everything we've already learned in class, this might be a lot of work and not very comfortable. The purpose of standing here for a few moments longer is to find that place where we're starting to feel ease as our body is settling into our practice. And I like to imagine on my inhale that I am inhaling all of the energy from the earth up into my body, clear through the crown of my head. And on the inhale, exhale, I'm pushing that energy back out and down my body, really starting to get this energy flowing in our body. So inhaling energy up from the earth into our body, exhaling as we come through, releasing all of that energy. So really what we're doing is we're just creating a swirl of energy coming into our body and coming out. What we want to do is we're going to check back into our posture. Is your spine extended? Are your shoulders open? Is your face forward? Weight balanced between your toes, the balls of your feet, your heels? Are your hips level? And are your arms resting gently to the sides of your hips? Inhaling that energy and exhaling. Okay, on your next inhale, we're going to add some arm movement to really exaggerate this. So we'll come down, swing our arms out, and pull them up. So we're imagining that we're pulling this energy all the way up over our head, inhaling, and then exhaling as we're pushing that energy down. Just starting to get some real slight, gentle movement coming into our body. Inhaling, lifting it all the way up, exhaling as we're pressing down. Again, really getting this energy around our body flowing. Inhaling, keeping that weight balance between your right leg, your left leg, front of your foot to the back of your foot. Inhaling deeply, and we'll pause with our arms all the way to the top. And we'll do an extended mountain pose. So our palms are facing each other. We're standing in our balance, reaching up, really pulling out through our shoulder joints, trying to reach our fingertips to the ceiling. Just breathing here. And then we'll drop our arms with an exhale. Okay, on an inhale, we'll pull our arms back up. So inhale, pulling them up, and our palms are facing each other, and then reaching those fingertips clear up to the ceiling. Now pay attention to what your navel is doing. We want to engage our core during all of our work. And to do that, we'll take, in fact, let's bring our fingertips down to our navel. Put your fingertips in your navel. Just feel the breath as you're breathing here. And then take your navel and see if you can press it into your spine. So really, really pull it in, press it into your spine. And you should be able to feel your entire abdominal wall engaging from up to where your ribs meet, clear down to your pelvic bone. Pulling that navel in and breathing. Okay, and we're just adding on little pieces to this posture. So again, let's inhale all the way up and check and see what your abdominal wall is doing. Take your navel and pull it in towards your spine, reaching up. And you can feel that this is real dynamic work to keep this posture, to keep your breathing, to keep your core engaged. Okay, exhale to release it. Okay, we'll go up one more time. Inhale all the way up. Our palms are facing each other. We're reaching up, engaging that abdominal wall. So tuck your navel into your spine. And this time, let's try and reach up and reach our arms back. So we're really squeezing our glutes, tucking them in tight, pulling our navel in, reaching up and back. So that's going to be our first move. We'll go from a standing pose, reaching up, and then we'll tuck our glutes, squeeze them, pull that navel in, and reach back. Okay, so now we know two moves, right? Two postures. We'll add a third posture to that, and what we'll do is a forward fold. And this forward fold we'll do in multiple ways throughout our practice, but I want to give you some of the dynamics of this pose. So if you're looking at Barbie, she always hinges from her hips. And I didn't put clothes on her because you can't really see it with clothes. Her spine stays stable. And when she bends forward, she keeps that spine steady. She's hinging from the hips, keeping her spine in one position. And you can see an exaggerated dip in her low spine. Yours won't be that much. You'll have more of a flat spine. But the movement is hinge from the hips. She's not bending this way to get into her fold. She's flexing from the hips, keeping that spine stable as she comes to a forward fold. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go from our standing mountain pose to our forward fold. So let's bring our arms back up to standing mountain, pulling our navel in, reaching our arms up, extending the spine, and we'll hinge forward with a flat spine, slowly keeping our legs straight, our spine straight, and then find that stopping point. Okay, your stopping point may require you to bend your knees slightly, or you may come to the floor reaching out in front of you a little bit farther. The goal is a flat spine, straight legs, forward folding. So Yours may be with slightly bent legs. You may stop and pause with your hands on your knees if you're not flexible in your hips or legs or back at this point. Or you may come all the way into the forward fold. And while we're in this forward fold, I want you to reach around and see if you can feel those two sitting bones. You should have one right under each butt cheek. And what we're going to use those sitting bones as kind of compass guides for how we want to stretch our body. So let's take those sitting bones and see if we can tilt them and push them up towards the ceiling. And as you push them towards the ceiling, you should be able to feel real dynamic stretching right down the back of your legs. Okay, we can release that. And then let's come down bent knees. Depending on where your knees are and what you can do, you can come down this way, this far, you can come down to a squat, but we'll return to a standing mountain pose. Okay, so we're starting back up to our standing mountain pose. Extending our spine, our shoulders are back, our glutes are tucked in, our navel is pulled in. We're going to inhale, arms all the way up. So our arms are all the way up, and we're pushing those hips forward as we squeeze the glutes, and we're really squeezing those glutes as we push open with the pelvis to reach back. And then again, with the flat spine, just like the Barbie fold, hinging from the hip, and you can tell you're hinging from the hip if you put your thumb in that hip joint and you're working on pinching your thumb, keeping that spine flat. And again, we're coming to a forward fold. And once your hands are rested on your legs for support, or your arms are rested on the floor in front of you or closer to your feet, once you're supported with your hands, you can allow your spine to flex and bend and melt into the forward fold. And then let's take those sitting bones, one on each side of your behind, and really tilt them and press them up towards the ceiling. And you'll feel a real different stretch in the back of your legs. Okay, let's return to that squat. And then we're going to put our hands out in front and we're going to work on a lunge. With a lunge, we'll be opening up our hips. So place both of your hands to the top of your mat, and we'll take our right foot and we're going to step our right foot towards the back of the mat. And then we can come down a little bit farther into this lunge. So we'll rest here for a moment, really opening up the front of this right hip. And let's try to press that right heel farther down towards the mat. And you can create some resistance with your arms so that you've got something to work against as you're pressing that heel down. And this is a lunge. We can drop our knee on this lunge as well. And if you're interested in a stretch on the front of your right thigh, you can lift that foot, or you can reach behind it, grab the heel, and pull it forward. Okay, let's just release it. We're in this lunge. And let's see if we can step this foot a little bit farther forward, creating a little bit deeper lunge. So let's keep that left foot in between our hands. And you can have that knee raised, or you can lower it a little bit farther. Just find the pose that's working for you. And I have my weight balance between both hands and my foot. And I'm trying to press this right hip a little bit lower towards the mat. And another way I like to explain it is I'm trying to separate or increase the space between my right knee and my left knee. So I'm pushing that left knee forward, the right knee back. Okay, let's lift it up. and then we're going to bring that leg back up. So it may look different for you to bring it back up. You may be hopping, 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 or you may be able to take it in one movement. Now let's take our left foot back and we'll lunge from our left side. So we're adding the left lunge, stepping that left foot back towards the back of the mat as far as you can get it, and then lowering our hips closer towards the mat. And I'm really pressing this right knee forward and my left knee back. You should feel this opening up the front of your hip. And you should also be able to feel some real strengthening going on in your arms as you balance the weight of your torso on your arms. Let's drop that left knee. You can feel a different muscle group starting to engage, really pressing that left hip. Coming that left heel towards the back of the mat. Trying to get that left heel closer to the mat, and we're stretching out that muscle in our calf. Okay, dropping that knee again. You can keep the knee dropped, or you can come up and then reach back and grab that knee and pull it forward, or just lift this heel to stretch the front of that thigh. Okay, releasing it. Now we're going to take that left foot and bring it back between our hands. So you can hop, hop, hop. You can make one step. Just depends on where your body is. So we're back in this forward fold. And while we're in this forward fold, let's check into those sitting bones and see if we can really lift them up, get them a little bit higher now that our body's starting to warm up a little bit. Lifting them a little bit higher. Okay, now we can come back to a squat. Take a deep breath here, and we'll stand. Coming back to our standing mountain pose. Again, with our mountain pose, our chest is open. The notches on our hip are level. Our spine is tall and extended. Our face is neutral. And then we'll add our arms reaching up. And we'll do these first 1, 2, 3 moves, 4 moves together. So mountain pose with the arms reached up, tucking in our glutes, reaching back, lifting our chin. And with that Barbie fold, flexing from the hips, coming forward to a forward fold. Lifting those sitting bones. Now let's balance our weight on our hands, and we'll step that right foot back. Get that lunge again. And we'll add a plank, and I'll show you the modifications for a plank. So let's take this left foot and bring it back, coming into a plank. And this is really quite intense to stay in a traditional plank. So if this is new to you, drop your knees to the mat. Keep your elbows tucked in, facing the back of the mat, or you can come down to forearms. Or you can come back up. And if this bothers your wrists, if you have wrist issues you're working through, take your fists and you'll be balancing on your knuckles. Okay, so again, you can be in a traditional plank. You can be in a modified plank with your knees down or on your forearms. So find the pose, the plank pose that's working for you. And even on your forearms, you can lift your legs and keep them in a plank, but that takes a lot of strength, so that might be something you want to work towards. So I'm going to stay here to show a basic form of this. And what I'm going to do from here, from the plank pose, work on form. So I really want to keep my hips low, so try and lower your hips tuck that navel into your spine, and then we're going to lower our chest to the mat. Okay, so now we're on the mat, flat. And what we want to do is continue this flow, continue learning these moves to the flow. Let's take the laces side of our feet, so the top sides of our feet, and bring them down to the mat. Okay, so we've come from a plank pose down on our stomachs to the mat. And we're going to just work on some muscles in our core real gently at first. And what I want to do is have you bring your fingertips and line them up with the tops of your shoulders. Okay, so they're barely resting. The weight is on your chest, on your hips, on your legs. And with your hands barely resting here, just see if you can focus on the strength in your back and begin to lift your chest off the mat. And again, I'm not using my hands at all, just the strength in my back. Yours may look different. If at this point, lifting your head and getting your shoulders off the floor a few inches is your work zone, stay there. If you're able to lift your torso, again, keeping your hands gently on the mat, if you're able to keep your torso raised a little bit and your hands off the mat, hold it here, and then release back to the mat. You can rest and put your cheek to the mat, and we'll come up into this pose again. Okay, take your forehead to the mat. Fingertips are lined up under the shoulder, barely touching the mat. We're using all of the strength in our core to lift. So we're lifting our face, inhaling and exhaling. On the next inhale, we're going to lift our chest up off the mat. As high as you can get it, and you can feel these small muscles all along your spine really starting to engage, and these help us keep great posture and a strong spine. Okay, coming back down. And again, you can rest that cheek to the mat. And we'll come up a little bit farther in this pose, up to cobra pose. So we'll add one more pose. So our forehead goes back to the mat. Taking a deep breath here, and on the inhale, lifting your face. Exhale. Another inhale, lifting your chest up as high as you can get it, squeezing those glutes. And now we're going to add the arms and see if we can lift our chest with our arms off the mat, keeping those elbows tucked close to our sides, facing the wall behind us. See if we can just lift up with a bent arm and feel that strengthening in your back and in your arm. And let's release it and come back down. And we'll do this a few times so you can get the feel for the muscles that need to engage in the form that works for your body in this. Coming back to the mat, our forehead to the floor, fingertips under our shoulders, using only our torso muscles, the muscles in our back. We're going to lift our face. Inhale and exhale. Next inhale, lift our chest farther off the mat. Exhale. Now we're adding the arms. So pushing down on our hands, pressing up with our chest, coming up into cobra. A real strengthening move here. Keeping those elbows tucked and slowly, slowly, slowly release it. Okay. We'll add one more pose to this flow. And what I'm teaching is sun salutations A, and we're trying to really just break down each part of it so that we can eventually add all of these pieces together in one flow. So bring your forehead to the floor, fingertips under your shoulders, Coming up, using the strength in your back, lifting your face, your chest. Now engaging your hands, we're pressing down to the mat with our hands. Our elbows are tucked close, and we're going to come all the way up to straight arm. Okay, we're in straight arm now, okay? And this should be a little bit easier to stay in straight arm. And then what we want to do is from here, we're going to lift our hips. Come to our toes. Coming up into a down dog, and you'll recognize down dog. It's one of the most popular yoga poses. So now we're back in down dog, and let me explain the parts of our body and what they're doing in down dog. Again, if you have wrist problems, your down dog can be on your fists or on your forearms, okay? Our sitting bones, we're lifting them up to the ceiling. Both of those sitting bones, our tailbone, we're trying to really push them up to the ceiling, and our heels, we're pressing them down to the mat. And then we try and take our chest and our head and press it in between our arms. Okay, so balancing between our feet and our hands, pressing our head between our arms. Our elbows are tucked close to our body. Our heels are down. And I'd like to teach you a few options. So if you need to come out of this for a minute and just rest and watch, I want to show you a few options that you can do in down dog. And down dog is generally used as a resting pose. And I'll show you what we can do, and you'll really start enjoying down dog. So you can work on pressing that head a little bit farther in between your arms. You can pedal your feet back and forth, really stretching your calves, stretching the backs of your legs, working on those hips. And I like to, in down dog, I like to open up to the side. So I'm going to drop my right heel, lift my left heel, and open up to the side and get a really nice stretch all the way down that right side of my torso. Okay, opposite side, I'm going to drop my left heel, lift my right, and then I'm opening up all along this left side. Okay, so we're back here in down dog. And what we want to do is we want to work on getting our feet back between our hands. So this takes some work. So you might hop, hop, hop. You might need to reach back and grab that foot and lift it and bring it forward. Or you might eventually be to the place where you can go from down dog and just step that foot right between your hands. Okay, so let me show you that again. So we're in down dog, we're lifting our hips, we're opening to the side, pedaling, and when we're ready to start transitioning to our next move, we'll step that right foot between our hands. Okay, so you can step it with one step. You can hop, hop, grab it, pull it up, or you can just start from the very beginning and pull it up and use your hand. Okay, and then it's easier to step that left foot in between the hands when we're at this point. So we're going to end up in our forward fold. And this gets a little bit confusing because we're adding a lot of things together. We'll get there. I'll keep redoing this. Stepping that left foot between the hands now. And where do we end up? We end up in that forward fold, okay? This should feel a little more comfortable for you at this point. And we'll inhale all the way up to standing from here. Okay, and you have officially worked all the way through a sun salutation. And most every yoga class you'll ever do will do sun salutations or a variation of sun salutations. And we can use those same, I don't know, it's probably 7 poses, and do variations on those for an entire class. And what I want to do is I want you to just watch this sun salutation as I work all the way through the 7 poses and add them together. And then we'll try and do it together. Okay, I start at the top of my mat in my regular standing pose, hands at heart center. And heart center is not under my chin. Heart center is lower, our forearms are parallel to the floor. So I'm starting in heart center, Inhaling as I reach my hands up to the ceiling, separating them, squeezing my glutes to reach back, forward fold, that hinge, the Barbie forward fold. And we're in a forward fold. And then we reach that right leg back to our lunge. So now we're in the lunge. We'll reach our left leg back to our plank. And you could be in your modified plank on your forearms or on your fist. And then we'll drop our knees and we'll drop our chest to the floor, keeping our elbows tucked in. And then we flow through to our cobra. So lifting that chest, lifting the torso, arms are bent, coming up to straight arm, and then rotate back through to down dog. And we step that right foot forward and the left foot forward. We're back to forward fold. And then we inhale to standing. And I'll do this again faster on the left side. So we'll do right side, left side, right side, left side. And we'll just continue to build from this. But I want to show you in a faster flow. Hands to heart center, reaching up, extending back, forward fold, left leg back, right leg back, plank, knees, chest and chin, cobra to up dog, to down dog, left leg forward, right leg forward, forward fold, inhaling up, back to heart center. So that is our sun salutations, and we'll do variations on those. And we'll really focus on the basics of those poses and sun salutations so you're comfortable adding on to that. But from this point, I want to do a few poses on the mat so we can get used to a few poses on the mat. So come down to your mat in a table pose. And what table pose is, looks just like a table. So our wrists are under our elbows. Our elbows are directly under our shoulders. Our knees are under our hips. And we're going to be getting some movement into our spine. And a lot of times you'll see your cat-cow and people are really dipping that low spine. We want to try and neutralize that low spine and get movement in our mid to upper spine. So we're going to dip the mid spine, open up the chest into our cow. And then on an exhale, we lift that mid to upper spine, tucking our chin into our chest, really pulling up on the exhale. Inhaling, dipping mid to upper back as we open up with an inhale. Exhale as we close. And you'll notice in these poses, anytime we're opening up and expanding, we're doing it on an inhale. Anytime we're closing in, getting smaller, like in this pose, we're exhaling. So inhaling cow, exhaling cat. Really trying to exaggerate that spine movement, not dumping into the low spine. So inhaling, lifting the mid to upper back, or exhaling, inhaling as we open up. Exhaling, inhaling. Okay, keeping in this pose, we want to create space between our heels. We're going to lower our hips into that space between our heels. So the laces side of our feet come to the mat. We're going to lower our hips into this space. If you have issues with your knees and your knees don't bend as well, you can always take a rolled up towel and place it under your knees for support so you won't get as much pressure on them. And we'll come into an extended baby. So lowering our hips between our heels, reaching our palms to the front of the mat, and then just reaching, inching those fingers forward as we're lowering those hips. You should feel releasing into your shoulder joints. Should feel stretch in your rib cage. And then you can lower your forehead to the mat, remembering the breath. Let's take one more deep breath here. And then take our hands, palms to the ceiling, and rest them to the sides of our hips. And again, finding our breath here. Really stretching here. Allowing the mat to completely support our weight. Finding softness in our brow, in our jaw. Okay, coming back up to table. I'd like you to do 2 cat-cows at your own pace. Remembering to keep that low spine stable, not a lot of movement in the low spine on this movement. Then let's take our hips around to the front and put the soles of our feet together and pull them in as close as we can get them to our body. So checking again with our posture. That spine is tall and extended. Our chest is open. Our face is forward. And we can take our elbows and start pressing them down into our knees. And again, we're opening up into those hip joints. The leading surgery for men and women as they age is hip replacement. And a lot of it is because we don't get that movement inside those joints. And the older we get, the more tight our bodies get, and we don't play like we did when we were younger. So we don't get movement into the joints, which brings in synovial fluid, which brings in phytonutrients. So motion is lotion, and motion prevents a need for surgery down the road. Okay, bringing our feet forward. We'll sit in Dandasana, and this is always an interesting thing to teach the new students, how a sitting pose where you're just sitting, not doing anything else, can be so dynamic. And let's go through the parts of our body to make sure that we're in this pose correctly. Find those 2 sitting bones under your hips, and if you need to, you can pull flesh out from side to side so that you can feel those sitting bones. We want to take our spine and extend the space between every vertebrae and see if you can increase your height by 1 inch. That's the goal, okay? Our chest is open. There's slight tension between our shoulder blades as we're squeezing them together. And let's see, our heels are flexed. Our knees, let's see if you can pull your kneecap up towards your thigh. And then gently place your hands to the side of your hip, gazing straight forward, pulling your navel in and your pelvic floor up. And then see if you can just breathe softness into this tension. This is really a lot of work, and I'd like to hold this for a minute. So I will keep reminding you of the areas to check into so that we can maintain correct posture. Extended spine, navel pulled into the spine, pelvic floor pulled up towards the spine, chest is open, slight tension between your shoulder blades. Your hands are gently resting to the sides of your hips. Legs are straight, knees are pulled into your thighs. Heels are flexed. Now check that space between your eyebrows and see if it's soft or if it's tense. See if you can let the skin on your face just drape and hang there. Your jaw is loose. There's tightness between your shoulder blades. Chest is open. Navel pulled into your spine. One more deep breath here. And then on the inhale, inhaling to reach your arm up, and we'll do a forward fold. And it's the exact same movement that we did when we were standing, but this time gravity is going to be working differently as we're sitting. Reaching up, hinging from the hip with a flat spine, reaching forward, really trying to lay that chest flat, keeping your spine flat, okay? Once you're supported by your hands to your legs, to the mat, then you can start rounding your spine and melting into the pose, but only after you've hinged from the hip with a flat spine as far forward as you can and are supported in coming a little bit farther into the pose. Keeping those heels flexed. And now take just a moment to dip your chin closer to your chest and feel how that changes the stretch in the back of your legs and your back. Check to see if there's softness in your face, softness in your shoulders, in your arms, in your breathing. And take a couple more breaths here. Okay, let's release. And let's take this forward fold one more time. So heels are flexed, kneecaps pulled into the thighs, spine is extended, navel tucked into the spine, pelvic floor lifted, reaching up with a flat spine, hinging at the hips, laying that chest right over your legs, supporting yourself before you allow flexion in your spine. And again, we'll hold this for 1 minute and really work on softening and allowing yourself to come into the pose with each exhale. Imagine that exhale breath, breathing softness and flexibility into your muscles and allowing yourself to release a little bit farther into the pose with each exhale. Really seeing if you can find comfort in the discomfort. Flexing those heels. Try pressing your chin into your chest. Okay, release. Coming back out of it. And we'll come down onto our back. And I'll teach corpse pose, which is the pose that you will use every single yoga class at the end or at the beginning as you're centering and becoming grounded. So what you want to do is just figure out a place where your hips are aligned, your legs come out straight, and you allow your feet to just fall naturally to the side. And again, you've got that space in between your low spine. Your palms are facing up. And your arms aren't tucked close to your body. They're far enough from your body that you can get air up into your armpit. And then we're just lying on the mat, allowing gravity to make us feel like we're sinking into the earth, slowly, almost like we're laying in wet concrete and just sinking slowly. You can allow each area of your body to relax and to soften. And if this is irritating for your low spine, a lot of times keeping your legs down can really bother people's backs. blanket, a towel, or I have a bolster that I like to place under my knees to help my lower back. And you can get these on Amazon. I think they're about $20, but it's a yoga bolster. And you can just rest your knees this way, and it really helps your low spine from getting tension building in it. So what I want to do for about the next 10 minutes is talk a little bit about meditation. And I always like to end class with it depends on the day, a 5 to 15-minute meditation where we really just regroup and get our real practical benefits from meditation and mindfulness exercises. And something that I think a lot of people don't understand is that there are real health benefits to slowing down. And a lot of times people who have anxiety or panic kinds of issues think that they need to calm their mind and then they can calm their body. But the reverse is true. When we calm the body, the mind follows. So we calm the body to calm the mind. And there is a lot of empirical peer-reviewed research about mindfulness and meditation and the medical benefits. And if you've got children or if you're in school, mindfulness and meditation actually improves the mind's ability to be able to focus and maintain and retain recent information that you're learning, and also to keep your mind from wandering. It only takes 5 or 6 different practices to be able to get your mind more focused and able to pay better attention. Digestion is always helped with meditation, and it also strengthens the immune system, and it lowers our blood pressure, and it also helps our body to heal faster. So while I'm talking about this real quick, you're welcome to just stay in Shavasana and just breathe in deeply and slowly through your nose. Exhale deeply, slowly through your nose. And I have just a few more things I want to share about this and why it's so important for us to include this meditation and mindfulness with our practice. Also, a lot of us as we age start dealing with inflammation issues, and this is one of the best helps for inflammation in the body. Better sleep, it helps you to sleep faster, fall asleep faster, and to stay asleep longer. And there are a lot of apps. If you just look on the App Store on your phone, there are a lot of meditation apps that you can listen to at nighttime, and they'll have hundreds of nighttime meditations. Creative problem solving. So in your work, in your schooling, in what you're doing, meditation helps us to be able to think of new and varied solving old problems. Helps us to better deal with stress in the family, stress at work, and stress in everyday life. And this is really an interesting thing as we get older and maybe we're becoming empty nesters, or our family is moved out, or they're far away, or we've lost a spouse or a loved one. But there are scientifically proven to have fewer feelings of loneliness for those who practice meditation, even those who practice meditation alone. So it says even after 8 weeks of mindfulness, they're feeling less lonely and less isolated. And lastly, and I think this is huge for all of us, is that it improves our self-esteem. It's shown to boost our self-esteem across any cultural boundary, improve our body image, our sense of self-worth, and basic contentment. And along with that comes mood regulation. It offers a powerful way to regulate our mood and other emotional, mental disorders. It helps with depression, anxiety, stabilizing all of the mindfulness of those who deal with those debilitating issues. So what I want to do with this last meditation, this mindfulness is just a body check-in. And what we'll do is we'll just pay attention to the major areas of our body. We'll notice what they're feeling, and we'll mentally allow that area of our body to relax. And you'll notice during this practice that your mind will start to wander. And when your mind starts to wander, always return to the breath. And a little trick I like to use is if my mind is wandering and I've got too many things going on in there, returning to the breath and just counting the inhale, counting the exhale. And if I've got that going through my mind, then I don't have a lot of other thoughts coming in. So what we'll do is we're lying in Shavasana, completely relaxed on the mat. Let's go through our large body parts from the crown of our head to the tips of our toes. And starting with the crown of our head, notice the feelings that your body is experiencing on the top of your head. And with areas to lighten, to soften, allow that to flow over the face, over the skull, and into the shoulders. Breathing that softness and relaxation. And allow that softness to come into the chest, the back, lower arms, palms, back of your hands and fingers. Feel the softness in your body becoming more relaxed with each breath. And continue to bring the softness into your low back, your hips, your glutes, your stomach, shins, ankles, top, bottom of your feet, gaze down your body, completely at rest, completely at ease. Relaxation. Always returning to the breath when the mind begins to wander. Allowing that cool breath to inhale, the warm breath to exhale, lengthening each breath. With the last few breaths. attention to what your body is doing. Take intentions for your day to keep this calm relaxation with you as you go about the things you do today. Knowing that you can always return to this relaxation. And to bring a little bit of movement back into our fingers and toes, to our ankles and wrists, our legs, stretching them out, our arms, reaching them over, feeling deeply. Taking another deep breath here and bringing yourself up to a seated cross-legged position. With our hands at heart center, I offer gratitude for joining today and hope for your future as you begin yoga. Namaste. Thanks for joining. I'll be back with this beginning series on Wednesday, and I hope to see you. Thank you. If you have any questions, feel free to, you can unmute your mic, or you can send them in a chat, or just private message me on Facebook. I'm happy to help with whatever, but I hope